Special episode of the Sports Minute. I got a special guest joining me this evening. Goes by the name of Ray Simpson, aka RayisYP. And he got an album coming out called Therapy Flows. Actually, it is out. It's out right now. Check it out on all platforms. He's going to join me to talk about the sport of hip hop, the cultural impact, and the sport of battling, whether it be on the streets or in the record industry. So check it out. You're going to love it. All right. So my first question, the question that we've been debating for years, man, is hip hop a sport? And if so, why?
Oh no, hip hop can definitely be viewed as a sport. I mean, the competitive nature of music, of hip hop in general, pretty much been around since the beginning. You know, you go all the way back to the 80s, you know what I'm saying? You had Burroughs battling over supremacy, you know, with KRS and MC Shan, and then we get to the 90s, we had the East Coast, West Coast thing. Then 2000s, we had Jay and Nas. I mean, that was birthed out of a competition of, all right, you might be dope, but I'm better than you, which is really all like, if you take like basketball, like the competitive nature of basketball was always about, especially when you got into like the 80s into the 90s, when the talent level started to rise for real. It was really just trying to like make it seem like you was the best player on the court every day, like Jordan. Jordan was like, his competitive nature, you know what I'm saying? Like, he always wanted to be looked at and viewed at as the best when he stepped on that court. When you step into the booth, you want to exert your dominance then too. Like, it was always about, like them braggadocious bars was always like rooted in the competition aspect of everything. So, but with that, how do you get to be the best at something? You practice, right? So, like, as an athlete, you working at your craft. If you're a ball player, are you working on your game every day? If you want to be the best, if you were MC, it was always the same thing, bar after bar, verse after verse. Like, you just working on your craft until you, like, I mean, one of the biggest examples of that was Lil Wayne. Like when he went on that mixtape run, that run that kind of put him as Hot Boy Lil Wayne to on a short list of GOAT Lil Wayne. He was working on his craft every day. He was in a booth all the time, song after song, verse after verse, until he got to a point where, like, you recognize him as being great, but you didn't recognize him as being great before. And his whole thing, but I'm the best rapper alive, so I have to prove that to you. I can prove it. Is I got to go out there and show it. I got to work on my craft and show it. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of similarities and parallels between sports and hip hop in general.
It's funny that you say that. You bring up KRS-One and MC Shan, because I was just watching the Beef documentary not too long ago. KRS-One said, if you are in the top 10 of Billboard, I have a rhyme to battle you. And he said, no disrespect, that's just how we practice. So people don't understand, just as much as you in the weight room preparing for the football season or the basketball or baseball or soccer, whatever sport you play, you preparing for battle every day when you sitting at your table writing rhymes or practicing rap songs. A lot of people don't know, man, like, you got to exercise your mind too. And I think reading is a part of that lyrical conditioning as well. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of go back and you start to like really look at, okay, I speaking for me personally, so like my favorite rappers of all time, a lot of them, some of them, Jay-Z, Nas, Pac, guys that are like well versed, that they can kind of draw from different avenues because of things they read, they research, like the vocabulary don't come out of thin air. Like those metaphors and double or triple entendre they're doing don't come out of thin air. They got to grab that information from somewhere. Nas was always dropping, still to this day at 49. Like King Disease 3 come out, he's still dropping gems that was like stuff that he pulled from what he read, you know, things that he researched. So you kind of gotta have like different avenues of how you uh withdraw information to to put it in your music, to put it back out. You know, like if you want to be successful, if you want to be have the longevity, you can't, you know, you don't want to be a guy that just come out and just keep redoing and rehashing the same thing over and over and over again, especially in this era. Like people get X'd out real fast doing that, you know. Like it's always the guys I think that put in the work to research and layer up their music and content that I think have more like long lasting impacts.
You know what? And that's the thing too. You know, reading like I like to call it like verbal and mental conditioning, just like you know, mentally. You know, just like athletes are, you know, have to get into conditioning for the season. And, you know, when you competing for that top spot, it's everybody competing for that top spot, especially, you know, if you don't have a deal and you in the streets. Like the streets is like, it's like a fight for survival. And what would you say is like, how does hip hop play a role into that? Like if you're a rapper and everybody just always competes in the hood, whether it's double dutching, the best double dutch, the best whatever. Like, how would you say hip hop plays a role in that, if that makes sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, you gotta think most of your hip hop, from your hip hop legends all the way through now, where they coming from? They coming from the streets. You know, like you know, so a lot of those principles, a lot of those layers of their foundation, it just bleed over into the music. You know, like if you were competitive as a kid, you're not going to stop being competitive if you become an adult and now you're doing music. It just carry over. You know, like, you know, again, speaking from experience, I was an athlete when I was a kid. I always wanted to be better than everybody and everything. Then when I started doing music, I apply the same thing. Like everything is meticulous. I work on my music. I work on my craft. Like I never want to like put out something I feel like somebody is doing it better than me. You know, like, so you gotta have that same mindset in order to like compete. It's so, and nowadays with athletes and with music, it's so many people doing it now.
Right.
You know, like it was before. Like you find like you take 10 people in a room, you might get one that do either or. Now damn near half of the, you know, like 10 people, half of them probably doing music, the other half doing sports. So like the level of competition definitely has to rise. That's more so because of the pot that everybody working out of has become bigger now. So, you know, you got to stand out somehow.
Hey, you know what? And I think that's what a lot of hip hop artists do. Cause now once it bleeds over to the music and you know, now you're not only competing to be the top lyricist, but now you're competing for record sales, you're competing for popularity, you're competing for a lot of things, just like an athlete, you know, will compete for popularity and compete for team supremacy and things like that. So what would you say who are your 5 most popular in terms of record sales and just flat out slaughtering a cat, you know, lyrically? Of course, we know Nas, Jay, Pac, and right now, who would you say are your top 5?
Well, I guess we talk about pretty much like overall package of okay, well, you still kind of got to start with Drake. I mean, he pretty much then had it on lock since he debuted. So like, you know,
right.
You know, and he doesn't really, I mean, he just came out with an album a few weeks ago. I know it was a collab album with 21, but it was still a top 6 selling album of the year. And it was a #1 album. I mean, even now they released 2 #1 albums this year. So, I mean, outside of him, you still, you got to go to Kendrick. You know, he might not be, you might not have like the quantity that you might want out of today's rappers or hip hop artists, but I like that because I feel like with a guy on his stature now at this point in the game, I mean, I don't think you probably gonna find anybody who will acknowledge the fact that Kendrick is a legend at this point.
Yeah.
You know, even at this stage in his career, you know, he has to live some life, go through some things first before he puts out a body of work. And but now you got to take the time out to put out those bodies of work, but it makes them stand out better because he took more time doing them, but he's still selling records. He's still revered. Like nothing else is falling off. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you definitely got to throw him on there. J. Cole, got to throw him in there. I mean, out of probably anybody that came out in the last, I don't know, decade, J. Cole probably my personal favorite rapper. I was going to say Lil Baby, but it's more so because his influence outside of the South hasn't really hit.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I know he's selling. He does sell records, so he has crossed over, but I don't really think his influence is on the level of those guys. That's a tough. Don't laugh to a tough one, man. I might still have to say Future.
Okay.
Because he still, when he comes out, it's still kind of an event. You know, like he still sells records. He still has like them singles that will last a whole summer or point in time. And he still, like, his influence can't really be matched at this point. I mean, as far as like you think about Atlanta, how it went from, you know, when we were coming up, I don't know you a few years younger than me, but you still know when we were coming up, you know, the Ludas, the T.I.s, the Jeezys, and like the Gucci and all that era. But if you look at it now, you know, you pretty much got like Gucci and Future like made a bunch of babies, and now that's what's coming out. You know, you know,
Yeah.
so it don't sound nothing like the Atlanta that we remember.
Right.
But if you had like
that.
Right, but if you had to pinpoint the moment in which this new Atlanta sound was birthed from, you got to look to Future for that. 5. For a minute there, I thought it was gonna be the Baby, but we kind of see what happened with that.
Yeah.
Woo, that's tough, man. That 5th one kind of tough.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Baby kind of threw me off with that, with some of the antics and some of the things. It's like,
yeah, like he was definitely on a trajectory.
Oh yeah,
you know, but now you kind of see some of his stuff then, you know, people not really messing with it like they were before. I mean, I know if you probably ask people that's in their 20s and in high school, they'll probably tell you NBA Youngboy.
Oh yeah. All my little cousins love Youngboy. I'm be like, yo.
Yeah, and you know what? And even though his music not necessarily for me regularly, like I tap in every now and again, I can't deny his impact.
Yeah.
He sell records. He don't have really with no radio play. He just got an organic, deep fan base. I think he puts out too much material, but he definitely has the ear and the tug of the youth. And that's really who controls hip hop. So I can't knock him for that.
It's him and it's that other one, man, that he's making that depressing music, man.
Oh, Rod Wave.
Rod Wave, man. Him and Rod Wave, the young folks go crazy over Rod Wave.
Crazy over that. I don't get it, but it's not. I guess it ain't for me to get. You know, I can't. Like I said, I'm never gonna be that guy that, like, you know, kind of talk down on what the youth is liking at the time, only because I know 10 years ago it was something different.
Yeah.
You know, if people remember, like the way we a lot of people our age talk about like the NBA Youngboys and the Rod Waves and stuff of this era, it's how people was talking about. I remember Nelly going through this. Like people like he wasn't hip hop. He, you know, like, you know, yes, soft music. You know, they just didn't give him the respect that he deserved. I look back at Nelly and it's like he really was like the start of what was to come later. You know, like then Drake came, and now it's like you just see stuff evolve over the
Yeah.
years. You know, so you know, I like I said, I ain't with it, but I gotta kind of probably throw NBA in there just because I respect the impact.
Much respect, much respect. Shout out to NBA Youngboy. Shout out to Rod Wave. Keep doing your thing. And last question. We talked about, you know, of course, how, you know, the rivalries and how that battle for the top MC supremacy is always the motivation for artists, whether you win the game, whether you're trying to get in the game, whether you're just trying to be a raw battle rapper. URL is a perfect example of that. One of my favorite battle MCs from the URL is probably, I like a whole bunch of them, honestly. I like Hit and Holla. I like Tay Rock. I like Reed Dollars, who's a veteran. I like Harley Clips. Like, who are some of your favorite hip hop? If you watch URL, who are some of your favorite battle MCs?
My favorite battle MC ever is Charlie Clips. I just love his setups, man. He real clever with his schemes and things. I just like how he delivers his every time he, you know, when he on the top of his game, just the way he weaves in and out of his setups is flawless to me. Outside of that, I think the best lyrical battle rapper that I can say is probably Loaded Lux.
Loaded Lux. I knew every.
He was always like I remember early on, like early Smack DVDs. From that was one of my first introductions into that. You know, like him, Sirius Jones, Mook. You know, like that era. So Loaded Lux kind of carried over from that era into URL for me. So that he's always kind of be like one of my go-to guys. Tay Rock, probably my third. I know he's probably like the king of the gun bar, you know, but his deliveries too, man. Like he been in a Tay Rock special like the last like 3 years. He just been in a bag that he just has not gotten out of. Like I can respect that consistency no matter who you put him up against. He not getting watched by nobody. One guy that's one of my favorites, I still don't think get the respect that I think they deserve, as I mentioned before, was Murder Mook. I think Murder Mook is, if they made a Mount Rushmore for battle rap, Murder Mook should be on it because a lot of his early battles, like early YouTube era, man, if you had to be there, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you did. Yeah,
like,
you did.
Mook had his battles was some like iconic, epic stuff back then, man. Like he don't really, I don't think he get the respect he really deserved from that. I mean, he does from that platform, but I think by the masses, when they talk about the platform, they don't mention him nearly enough. For that
battle, the first battle I ever watched on a Smack DVD was Loaded Lux and Murder Mook, and they was in that shoe store.
Yeah,
they went at it. I'm like, woo!
That was, I think, a lot of people's probably first introduction into like that energy.
Yeah.
You know, like if people don't remember, it took like those type of battles, like when they were showing them in the shoe stores and then on the block and in the subway station and stuff. It was that spark 106 and Park making the battles on Friday, because it was getting so big. Like, you know, people talk about viral this, viral that now, but back then to go viral was something.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it just took the streets over. People were just watching like crazy. So of course BT so let's capitalize on it, and then some of them guys came on the show and did it.
Yeah.
So that was their first exposure to the everyday rap fan back then. So they were able to kind of take that as like the foundation of what they're doing now. You know, so and if I had to go fifth for like far as URL rappers, just personally, I always like Conceited because I like his punchlines. His punchlines be funny to me, man. Like even when you see him, like now, you know, at that time frame, he was on Wild 'N Out. before he did Wild 'N Out, he was just straight being a battle rapper. He used to just murk dudes. It's like, if you love punchlines, Casita was your guy, because he reminded me of like his punchline material was kind of in the vein of Pete Battle Cassidy.
Yeah.
You know, and I always like Cassidy. You know, I actually like Cassidy like freestyles and stuff back then, even better than his actual music. But I thought Casita was kind of like from that cloth for me personally. So yeah, that probably be my top 5 on the battle rapper side.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like battle rap doesn't really get talked about, and it's like we said, man. Battle rap is just as much a sport, man. Okay, I got one final question, and then I'm gonna let you go because I know you got.
No, you good.
We talk about URL and some of those great rap battles, man. Well, actually, this is a 2-part question because this is going to transition to the industry. But what are some of you like? Give me like 2 rap battles that the fans can go and check out just in case they curious.
On the URL side.
URL side.
If you want to just see a master class, I know some people's opinions on it vary depending on what part of the battle you're watching. But if you want to just see a master class on presentation, delivery of setups or rounds, and kind of just like owning the crowd to pretty much hang on your every word in the battle, because a lot of times that's all it really takes to win a battle, is to get that crowd 100% on your side. So no matter what the other dude's saying, it's not gonna hit as hard as what you're saying. And for me personally, it had to be that Lola Loves Calico battle they had from about 5-6 years ago, man. I mean, the funeral setup, he had celebrities in the Diddy, Buster was in the building. He was in New York. He had his home turf, but Lux he did some stuff on there that I think needs to be written down and given to as a booklet of how to own the energy of a rap battle. It was still to this day, I haven't really seen nobody really do it like that.
Yeah.
Second, one of my personal favorites, because I put 2 of my favorites together, was Tay Rock and Charlie. Listen, Tay Rock. I mean, that to me that was like, man, to me that was like the college football season. That was like Old State and Michigan going up. 1-2. They both came correct. They was both on their A games on that battle. And for me personally, it was like, okay, Charlie, that's my favorite battle rapper, but Tay Rock top 3 for me too. So it was like, I can't go wrong with either one right now. But that's definitely 2 battles. Like, if you just want to see execution and presentation, do the Lux one. You want to just see like top tier bars for people that got 2 different styles of how they do rap. Like, Tay Rock is a master at his style. Charlie Clips is a master at his style. It's like a clash of styles. You just want to see people who mastered their style and clash. That's one I think people should check out.
Okay. Now, when we talk about hip hop battles in the industry, man, it not only sells records. Well, not only does it, drive artists, to be better lyrically, but it also sells records. I think one of my, I give you, everybody says, Ice Cube versus NWA, No Vaseline, one of the greatest diss records of all time. LL Cool J versus Cannabis, second round KO, one of the greatest diss records of all time. Nas and Jay-Z, Ether, one of the greatest diss records of all time. I think a lot of battles that people don't really speak on unless you're a true hip hop head is Jadakiss versus Beanie Siegel. People don't know about that.
It's funny you brought that up, because that was one I was going to talk about or mention. Like, actually, Jadakiss. Okay, a little backstory for your followers is that, if you don't know, originally the Jadakiss Beanie Siegel beef was really Jadakiss and Jay-Z. And then it turned into Beanie and Jada when, you know, Jay wasn't, he didn't step on the front line for it, and Beans was wanting all the smoke. So Jada was lightweight dissing Jay and Rock in general, because he dissed Bleak in the song too, and he mentioned something about Beans. If everybody want to check that, it's a song called, I forget the name of the song, but the song "Kiss the Gang Goodbye" and it featured DMX. And both of them is dissing Rockefeller on that. People don't know that little tidbit, that DMX and Jay-Z was beefing too. So this was really like a Rough Rider Rockefeller thing that turned into Jadakiss Beans thing, or really with Jadakiss and the Lock. They was all dissing Beans. So pretty much became a Beans Jada State Property versus the Locks. Now you talking about bars. I mean, listen. This was like if Ali fought Tyson in their primes. I'm talking about like haymakers, just hit after hit of bars of disses between Beans and Jada, and for Beans to be at the time still a relatively unknown dude compared to Jada, still to this day holds up as probably the, you know, outside of probably when Game was going at 50, as a guy that held his position and didn't get knocked off. Like Jada did not knock off Beans.
No,
all right. You know,
no, he did not.
Beans had all the smoke for everything, he had all the responses for everything Jada and the Locks was sending at him. That's still probably my most, like personally, my most favorite beat, just because of the sheer number of freestyles and songs they were doing against each other. Like all of them was hard.
It's a battle that fans should definitely check out or go revisit if you want a reminder as to how crazy that battle was. I think that battle was a lot more vicious than Nas and Jay, honestly.
It was. I mean, because like it was just, you had Beans was straight from the streets, man. Like,
yeah.
You talk about like a dude who was straight off the block, went straight to the studio, you know, and so he didn't care about nothing. Like you coming at his dog, he coming at who he considered his family at the time, he was taking it personal. You know, so, and Jada was a legend already at that time, you know, and he was already considered one of the top lyricists of all time at that point. And Beans was going bar for bar with him. That moment is what really catapulted Beans up a lot of people's like lists at the time, man. You know, it got him a whole new level of respect that he probably would have never got, because you just Beanie C going up against Jada and the Locks and holding his own. Nah.
That was wild, man. And then
that was a wild time, man.
wild time. I'll give you another battle that people sleep on, man. Let me know what you think of this one. Joe Budden versus Game.
Joe Budden and Game one was another good one, because Game was like kind of same cloth as Beans. He did not care, man. Like Game, he's talking about Game for all his extracurricular crap he does is one of the best lyrical monsters that hip hop didn't ever produce, ever. And when you get Game in a beef scenario, I'm hard pressed to really find a situation where I can say Game lost a beef to anybody on some like bar for bar type stuff. I mean, we like literally before we started this podcast, I was watching Stop and Snitch and Stop Lying on YouTube from like 12 years ago. Like that whole thing, 50 just is him versus all of G Unit by itself. You know, so when you talk about Game and Button, that was one of my favorite ones, because like Button was another dude, you know, he won all smoke too. You know, and Joe Budden probably one of the most underappreciated, undervalued lyricists ever. You know, like his Mood Music series is one of the best mixtape / album series of all time. His work with Slaughterhouse, like Button ain't no joke.
No.
So him going up against Game, like they both can put out 15-minute songs and just go bar for bar against each other with no problem, you know. And I really, really like that beef between them two, because like Joe Budden at the time, like you said, he had that one with Game, and a little bit after that, he had one with Saigon, and he had them like back to back like that, and he has smoke for everything.
Oh yeah.
You know, like Joe Budden, you better come with your A game if you want to diss Joe.
Oh yeah.
You know, I made that one later on when he was him and Drake was doing that back and forth. So good, because I said it then. I was just saying it the other day. Somebody, if Joe Budden was on somewhere in the same level of popularity that Drake was, like to say he had like a level of popularity like Kendrick or J. Cole had, he would have made a huge dent into Drake whole vibe that was going on at that time with them disc records that Joe Budden was dropping in 2015.
Oh yeah, that Making a Murder. Yeah.
It just that Drake was so up here popularity wise that
Nobody
nobody
cared.
gave Joe Budden stuff the time of day that they should have. But go with back, listen to Making of a Murder Part 1.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Definitely, man. You talk about some vicious bars, and just talking about hip hop, man, it's definitely a sport, man. There is hard work that is put into these lyrics. There is thought. There is maybe not the physical exercise, but
Right.
it's still a mental exercise nonetheless.
You still gotta work your mind, man. And that the mental aspect of the game from a sports aspect is just as important as the physical aspect. You know, when you hear about IQ, like a person's basketball IQ or football IQ, that's really no different than like your mental strength of how you formulate words together, and you can like put them in bar format and create songs. You gotta work your mind in order to write these words or speak these words, and then have it flow over mute. Like, people make it look like everybody can do it, but they can't.
No.
It's the same with like sports. Sometimes it might look easy enough, but if everybody can play sports, everybody will be playing sports. That's why it's a select number of people that's playing it. So it's like you said, it's a lot of parallels between the two for sure.
Definitely, man. You got an album out too as of right now, man. You want to tell them about your album?
Yeah, I dropped the album earlier this year called Therapy Flows. That was probably my first project in about 4 years. Definitely was well received. Like a lot, even more so than I thought it was going to be. But I poured a lot into that album. You can check it out at all DSPs, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, whatever. It's on everything. I'm actually probably next week or so, I'm going to actually start work on my next one. So we coming with something probably in the next 6 months if everything works right. So yeah.
Please, man, make sure y'all go check out Therapy Flows. Check out this episode, man. Ray, man, thanks for joining the show, man. Really appreciate it, man. My man Ray Simpson, y'all. Check out Therapy Flows. I'm Rico McGee. Check out the Sports Minute as always, man. And as always, we'll see y'all in a minute.